Hello viewers, welcome to Pragya. In this video, we are going to discuss some C programs using pointers. Moving on to the first question, write a program in C language to show the basic declaration of a pointer. So let's know the basic declaration of a pointer. So let us see what is a pointer. Pointer is a variable which stores the address of another variable. Let us see an example. Here int star p is equal to ampersand a. Here a is a variable where the location of a is stored in a pointer called p. So simply pointer is also a variable which stores the address of another variable. Let's do the solution for the first question. Let's take a variable or a function name called fun. Let us take a variable called a and let us assign some value to it, say 20. Let us now declare a pointer called p1. Now we have to store the address of, we have to assign the location of that particular variable a in it. So p1 is assigned with the location of variable a. Now let's print what is there inside the pointer and also in the variable. So the value at p1, as p1 is a pointer, we need to give it with percentage, that is modulo p, as a modifier. Let's also print what is there in the variable called a. As a 20 is an integer, so we need to take percentage d here. Let us also see what is there in a star pointer. Here we have taken modulo divided t here because as star p1 also has that value which is similar to the variable a because we have assigned it here. So that is why we have taken d here. Now let's open the main function. Let's call the function here. As we have defined void here, so we cannot give return statement here. Let us now save and run the code. So the output is the value at P1 is some garbage value. That means it is a random address in the memory location. Whereas the value at A variable is what we assigned it over here, that is 20. And also the value at star P1 is also 20 because we have assigned the variable here, variable location to P1. So as we have asked to print the star P1, so the value which is present in that address, which is present in the P1. So 20 is printed here. Let us move on to the next question. So the second question is, Write a program in C language to add two numbers using call by reference. That is, it is asking to do this code using the functions along with the pointers and by call by reference. So let's see the solution to this. So what is call by reference? So whenever we need to call a function in a program, instead of passing the variables to it, we need to pass some address of the variables. That is why we call this process as call by reference. Instead of passing the arguments, we pass the reference of the variables. Okay, let's do the code now. Let's take a function called add to add two numbers. So as we are dealing with pointers, we now take the arguments as pointers here. And we call this statement or this method of declaring that function called as declaration, declaring a function. Okay, moving on to the main function. So we need to take the input from the user. We need two numbers, right? So we need to consider two variables called a, b. And also as we are doing with dealing with pointers, we need to take two pointers called p1 and p2 to store the address of two variables a and b respectively. And we also need to store the summation of these two variables. That's why I'm also taking a variable called sum here. Let's ask the user to print what numbers they wanted to add. As we are taking the integer numbers to perform addition, we need to take modulo d here. Okay, we are done with taking the input from the user. Now let us assign the location of a and b variables into this pointer variables called p1 and p2. So p1 is assigned with the location of variable a and the p2 is assigned with the location of b variable. Okay, we are done with this declaration part. Now let's call the function now. What is the function name? We have done, we have declared as add. So during calling a function, we need not mention the data type again over here. So let's directly call the function name. As we are given two arguments here, so we also need to take two arguments here also. As we have already assigned the location of variable a and b with the p1 and p2 respectively, so we need to give those two assignments, those two variables here to call the function. So we have also done with calling a function. Okay, now let's go to the main logic part. That means we need to define the function now. So what is the logic to add two numbers? That's what we have to perform in the definition part. So let's do that. So what we have taken during the declaration of function, we have taken two pointer integers, right? To pointer variables which are integers. So we need to take the same here when defining a function. So int star. So what are the variables which you are calling with them? You have taken p1 and p2. You are calling, right? So let's give that variables here. Okay. Okay, let's move on to the logic now. We have already defined it, declared a variable called sum to store the addition of these two variables. So let us assign that value to the sum. Sum is equal to, so in order to perform addition, we need to take plus. So we have done that. So we are done with this logic part. So we also need to print the statement over here because we have given the void here. We have taken void, so it doesn't accept any return type. So we need to print the statement here itself in the definition part. So what we need, sum of A and B, right? So we have done declarationing a function, calling a function, and we also done with defining a function. With what we defined a function, we have declared a function using a pointer, that is a reference. Again, we defined a function called function with the arguments as pointers. So pointer is nothing but using the taking the reference of the variable. So we are calling this function by using reference. That is why we call this process of declaring, or we call this process of calling a function using the reference is nothing but call by reference method. Okay, we are done with this code. Let's save and run the code now. So it is asking the user to enter the A. Let us give 12, B as 13. So the sum of A and B is 25, right? Let's move on to the next question. So the third question is write a program in C language to show how a function returning pointer. So we have seen that in the previous example, we have seen using the call by reference, we have done the code. That means we have passed the arguments with some address, or that means we have used it with pointers as a reference. So with the same, here we need to take a function which returns again a pointer as a result here. So let's see how to solve this. So in this example, we need to take a function which is has to be written a pointer. So let's solve this with a simple example like to find a larger number among two numbers. Okay, so let's do this code for that. So let's take a function and that function must return pointer, right? So we need to take int star. So our code is to find the larger among two numbers. So let's take the function name as find large. As we are dealing with pointers, that also with among two variables. So we need to take two arguments in this parenthesis. Okay, let's enter into main function. So let us call two numbers to find which is larger among those two. And also in order to store that result, we have to take another variable that must be a pointer again because the result must be a pointer from a function. So that's why I have taken star result a variable. So let's ask the user to print what are the desired numbers they has to find out the larger among them. So we have done with asking the user input. Now what we have to do, we have to store the result here among the function, which is the output of the function, right? So let us assign that result to that result variable, which we have already declared. So what is our function here? Find large. So what are the arguments we have taken? Pointer variables, that also two variables. So we also need to give those two variables here. As we have declared the function as a pointer, right? So we need to take the location as the arguments here. So that is why we need to give ampersand A and ampersand B, where this is called calling a function, right? And this is what before the main is nothing but declaring a function. So we also done with the calling function. As we have done, this main function is declared with a void data type, right? So we need to take the print statement over here because it doesn't accept the return statement. So we need to print the larger number among the two. So the result is stored in the pointer called result, star result. Okay. So now we are done with this main part. Now moving on to the defining a function. So as we have defined this as a data type with int, so again we need to take the same data type and we need to define that function as find large name. So as we have taken two variables or two arguments inside the parentheses, we also need to do the same here. But as we have passed the locations here, so directly we can take the pointer name here. Let us take another pointer name called n1 and n2 for ampersand A and ampersand B. So what is the logic here? Every defining a in every process of defining a function, we need to write the logic here. So what is the logic to find larger number among two numbers? Nothing but we need to consider greater than less than operator symbols, right? So if n1 is greater than n2, it is not n1 because star n1 considers the variable, contains the variable. So we need to mention star. And what is that? It must return n1 if star n1 is greater. So else it must return n2. Okay, where this is defining a function. So we have done with declaring a function, calling a function, and also as defining a function. Let us save and run this code. So it is asking the user to enter the number A. Let's give 50. Let's say 100 as a second number. So the larger number is 100. So we have also done how to show or how to return a pointer from a function. So have done with this basic codes of using pointers. Thank you for watching our Pragya channel. Please do like, share and subscribe. Please leave us your comments and please mention your topics which you want to be explained with us.